So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Dapper Reacts number 88. Pastor denies human evolution. So, for those of you who were not here last time, or who maybe just don't remember, Vishanti and I, hi Vishanti, we got to this point in this Pete Greer talk where he was talking about all the supposed ill effects of teaching evolution, by which he meant just looking at various fascist and communist dictatorships, pretending that they liked evolution a whole lot more than they actually did, and then saying, see? Evolution... killing people, there you go. I made the executive decision this morning to skip through the rest of that because he rambles on about, like, basically an argument from consequences for a surprisingly long time, including getting into, like, oh, this is the justification for abortion, which, no, it's never had anything to do with evolution. In fact, ever. Ever. So, yeah, no. We got a member for 27 months, DM How Readest Thou Wing, who's at the annual level, who sends, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Vishanti faces. There you go. And Vishanti, I noticed that you're wearing your lovely feeders there. Let people know how they can accomplish more feeders.
We have a secret super chat number. And if you reach that donation number, then I wear the feeders.
There you go. And of course, the donations bar here includes, let's see, gifted memberships. And if we get it to the top, then I have a fancy avatar for my next video. And if we get it a little bit past the way the top is right now, Bent gets free pizza, which he would appreciate. So... there you go.
It feels like it has been a very long time. It's been 84 years since I was last here. That's how it feels.
It's been like weeks.
Feels like 84 years.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
Old lady from the Titanic. Borg says the Top Hats off stream was awesome. Thank you. So yeah, if anyone's interested, I did a Top Hats off stream with a whole bunch of people, including Chesh and FTFE and Jordan from Reason to Doubt. And I'm picking those three because those are all people who have either been on my channel or I've been on their channels. So, you know. But yeah, if you have an extra 4 hours and 16 minutes or so to spare, and you want to watch an entire RPG episode of Star Trek Lexington, in which the crew finds a distress signal on a uncharted planet, and then shenanigans ensue, then yeah, go for it. I think we had a lot of fun. We had 7 players and me as the GM, so there were 8 people in this call, all doing Star Trek Adventures, TTRPG stuff.
That reminds me of Super Troopers. The next person that says shenanigans, I'm gonna pistol whip.
Lesby Andrea, who's been a member for 14 months and is at the annual level, says, busy working staff at local nightclub post-Pride parade party. Hope everyone have fun with a Pride flag. AIG Arinsak Med Snopar, which I don't know what language we're going for there, but I'm going to drink for it. Yeah. I always feel terrible about reading a language that I don't actually I don't even know what the language is, because I know I'm going to just butcher whatever it is.
Swedish, maybe?
Might be. So yeah. Alright. So, in case you're not familiar with this particular video we're going over, it was recorded with a whole lot of clipping on both the camera and the audio. And so the audio quality is trash. And unfortunately, once you clip on audio, there's really no bringing it back. That's it. You're done. There's nothing you can do there. Same thing with cameras, right? Once you clip a camera, you're not recovering any data within the clipping area, right? There isn't any data to recover. So... yeah, we're going to have to deal with that. We are doing the drinking rules. I do, in fact, have a Mai Tai because I bought a lot of ingredients and they are not gone. I still have far too much pineapple juice and rum.
I was right, it's Swedish! Woo!
Yay!
Hell yeah.
Nice. Oh, that was Swedish with the umlaut over the A being an S sound. So like ers en ein. Ensna sec. Glenn Hovind, full relation with the AI Kent Hovind. AI Kent Hovind is one of the creepiest things that has ever occurred.
I know, this is really a uncanny valley. I don't like this at all.
Oh man, I've seen a few AI Kent Hovins, and that's one of the more popular ones I've seen. But anyway, Glenn Hovind, full relation for 200 Argentinian peso, says, general rule, if it has A with direct R, it's Swedish. If it has ER and looks like cute, it's Norwegian. If it has ER and kind of looks German, it's Danish. Swedish can look like German, but it has the A with the direct R. I will almost certainly not remember that. But thank you. Look, despite the fact that I'm a pretty big fan of linguistics and that I have studied a fair few languages, and that depending on exactly how you count, maybe I'm bi or trilingual, I don't know. Look, the Northern Germanic languages are just going to be a black box for the rest of my life. I've just decided that's just how it's going to be. And that's okay. That's fine. So, yeah, that's just... Sorry, Germanic languages, most of you.
By the way, I watched a YouTube documentary on Ocean Gate, and it's even worse than you think.
Wonderful.
Like all the clips of the CEO, just the way that this guy edited it. It doesn't have like a nice tidy ending, but it doesn't need one because, like, you know how the story ends, and the whole time the editor has been peppering the CEO quoting, like, regulations are holding us back, all these safety regulations, we don't need them, da-da-da-da, we can do this with carbon fiber instead of titanium, and because reasons, and it just the whole time...
You know how it ends.
Absolutely leans into the dramatic irony there. It's very much like a Greek play. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's I might have to watch that sometime because that sounds
hubris.
Like, yeah, it really is like a Greek tragedy level hubris. Oh, did Icarus fly too close to the sun? Oops. All right.
The billionaire was hoisted by his own petard.
All right. So, we're going to dive into the Pete thing. We are doing the drinking rules, but like I usually say on Saturdays, if you want to hear all the rules, go hang out on Tuesdays, where I explain all of them. In the meantime, if you're playing along, please be careful, know your limits. Don't go ahead and, drive a car, operate heavy machinery, fly a plane. After this, it's a bad idea. Don't text your ex. And also, if you want to play along with something that isn't intoxicating, that is absolutely fine. And if you don't want to play along at all, yeah, there you go. What do you got, coffee?
Mm-hmm.
Go on the opposite end of the spectrum for stimulants rather than depressants.
Well, some people drink stimulants and get sleepy, so...
Alright, well, I'm going to hit play on Pete here. Pete is going to be telling us about how human evolution is an illusion. Which is also why I skipped over the just arguments from consequences against evolution, because none of it had actually anything to do with human evolution in particular. So, and be prepared for just the worst sound.
Well, early man, if you dig up all the actual fossils of what they think were early men, we don't have very many.
I mean, we have literally hundreds of individuals.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what?
Like...
Okay, buddy.
Yeah, like, it's a weird thing that creationists do, where they like to try to emphasize how small, like, the total volume of all human fossils known is. Which is like, okay, but no one measures fossils by volume. There's no one going around like, hey man, did you know that I found 3 liters worth of dinosaur fossil? What would that mean? What does that mean? And yet they like to tell us what the
dumb of a unit is kilowatts per hour.
Exactly. No. Kilowatt hours, not kilowatt per hour.
Kilowatt hours.
Yeah. That's just
hours.
joules.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Anyway, yeah, it's like, what is it, like 1.3 gigajoules or something per megawatt hour? Just call it 1.3 gigawatts.
That's just dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the reason there were so many Ocean Gate things dropping this week is because they found, like,
Huge.
the
Yeah.
the wreckages, and that became like a big news story. So everyone's like, "Oh yeah, hey, remember this guy who was hoisted by his own petard?"
Yeah. Ben,
And took
bro,
innocent people with him.
yeah. Ben, Bro Mike Thick Tunicate B2022, who's been a member for 17 months and is at the amulet level, says Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, and the Angie's a bag of dicks, all via emoji, so we will take a drink. Thank you very much. But then, Ben, Bro Mike Thick Tunicate B2022 also gifted 10 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you so much. So let's take 10 drinks of this Mai Tai. I am going to be toasted.
And while you do that, they went to Don Giovanni, Emir of Hakan, Science Crumble Raisin Nerd, David Taylor, Ian Debunked, Todd Ferguson, Flurfament Supervisor, Ian Chen, Official, not unofficial,
That's 10.
Vista Freya, Can of Geese, 3 Can Sam, and Fee 2879.
Nice.
3 Can
And
Sam.
Prixie Archaeoraptor is a bird of paradise purple, who's been a member for 7 months, says Dapper is a linguist. We all know it, with a Mothra, and I'll take a drink for that Mothra, but no, hashtag not a linguist. Although, I do remember a dinosaur-themed game dropped, and I went to Twitch, and this was a while back, to just watch people playing it. And I dropped into one stream where there weren't too many people playing. And I started talking about, you know, dinosaurs and whatnot. And then I mentioned, because I was a Kickstarter backer on this game, I was like, oh, hey, I'm in the credits for this game. And he's like, hold on, which paleontology supervisor were you? And I was like, oh, no.
Oh,
I'm just a Kickstarter backer.
no.
Please. Like, yeah. Yeah, like, online I have been mistaken for a vertebrate paleontologist. It's happened. It's okay. It's okay. Alright, here's more Pete.
They said that if you put them all on a table, it would be like a large pool table or something like that. That's all the fossils that we have that we think were pre-humans, and so...
Oh, I'm sorry, he's not going with volume, he's going with area. The area taken up by the fossil...
That's even dumber.
Okay. Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith, who's been a member for 20 months, is at the Tetrapod level, says Dapper is a cunning linguist. I will just let that go with no comment. So, look, here's the thing, right? Let's suppose you wanted to have a gander at, say, the fossil record of mice. You had an excellent fossil record of mice with hundreds of individuals across multiple species, across at least 2 or 3 different genera, all transitionally leading up to, say, the modern dormouse. How much space do you think that would take up? If you put it all in a pile? Probably not a lot, right? Because mice are small. Most human ancestors are smaller than modern humans. Modern humans are about as big as hominids have ever been, in terms of like height and, in many cases, overall body mass. And yeah, like the spatial, like the space that you could put them all in a pile in doesn't really matter. It's meaningless. What actually matters is how many specimens do we have, and how completely do we know the skeletons of these specimens? Because look, I mean, okay, there was a Lucy replica when we went to the museum over in LA, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you decided to put that into a bag, how big of a bag do you think it would need? Not terribly big, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
What the hell kind of question is this?
Why would anyone think that that's an important thing to know about? It doesn't matter.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you could just get it in a Walmart bag, so...
Probably, yeah.
What does that mean?
It means literally nothing.
It's very scarce evidence to begin with.
If it were scarce, if it were actually scarce, dude, instead of telling me how much space they would take up on a table, you would tell me how few actual skeletons there are. You'd be like, well, we only have like 5 skeletons. Yeah, okay, that would be scarce. That would be sparse. Instead, what we have is hundreds of skeletons, but some of them are small. And I don't know if you know this, but skeletons, just the bones of an organism, you can fit into a lot smaller space than an entire organism. Like, think about this. How much space would it take for you to encase a human as an intact creature, right? Like, how much volume would a full human displace if you dunked it in water? Versus, what if you dunked one human skeleton in water? How much water would that displace? A whole lot less.
Is the skeleton made of adamantium?
Well, sure, because all that matters is the volume, not the density or the hardness or anything.
Okay.
Yep. And
Just asking
then you can
for
take
friends.
that skeleton and you can use it to kill the TVA guys. But watch Deadpool and Wolverine. It's not a spoiler. It's literally
coming out on
season 1.
digital in like 2 weeks. So
There you go.
for those of you that just haven't been able to make it to a theater,
it's really good. Ben Thick Tunicate B2022, unofficially official, says for £5, AIG are a preposterous parade of pervert protrusions paired with pendulous paternity pouches. Asterisk SB mistakes to get. Oh, right, spelling mistakes to get around YouTube. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll take a drink because the pervert was spelled wrong. Yep, I remember. There was I was watching someone play Total War Warhammer on Twitch, and they were playing as the Dark Elves, and you are not allowed to type the name of the province or the capital city of the Dark Elves because the sequence of consonants in that are NGGRTH, and the vowels and all that are in fact quite different. But Twitch is like, no, you are not allowed to type any word with that sequence, with that partial sequence of consonants. So I was like, yeah.
Yep. It's so funny, like, I know some people are just like, Deadpool, whatever. Like, I get it. One of my best friends just does not like that character. I get it. But I will say, for DM Wing, who's like, hey, I need to convince my partner to watch the first 2, Deadpool's first, they really are worth it. Like, yeah, he cracks jokes and is hyper-violent, but the reason I personally fell for, like, Deadpool as a character is because the story, like, his actual drama story and his tragic, like, thing, that really is
like
good.
Deadpool says in the first movie, this isn't a superhero movie, it's a love story.
Correct!
There you go.
Yeah, and the third one is, like, about friendship and, like, finding your sense of self-worth and purpose, so...
And
they're
weirdly...
good, and they always have amazing opening sequences, so
True.
if nothing else, I think your friend would at least enjoy the opening sequences.
Also, the new one is at least partially about a weirdly homoerotic car fight.
It's not even weirdly, it's just exactly as homoerotic as it needs to be for a Deadpool movie. Like,
for a Deadpool, okay, that's fair. Yeah, for a Deadpool movie, that is true. Yeah, Deadpool is famously pansexual.
Yes, and it's so gay. I love it. I love it for him.
And then, if you've ever noticed that whenever they find a new fossil, they never think it's another ape. It's always another pre-human.
No, because those are apes, right? Like every single thing that he's got up there is an ape, and no scientist is denying this, right? Because ultimately, apes are just hominoids, which includes the gibbons and the orangutans and the gorillas and the chimpanzees and the humans. When a scientist says ape, in the context of human evolution, humans are included, as are any of their ancestors, all the way down to the first ape that ever aped. So, like, these are all
being
apes.
Very kind, saying that Marina Baccarin and I look similar. I don't think that that's the case at all, but I'm very flattered because she is mega pretty. So, thank you.
Hey.
That's a very high compliment.
Vishanti is not the most able to take compliments about her appearance. Out of all
hey,
the people
I just took that compliment.
Kind of. You then couched it in like, oh, I don't know if I deserve this.
No, I don't think I look like her very much. Like, we have dark hair and stuff.
That's all it takes.
But, like,
all it takes.
Because that's where the money.
Thank you. You did say thank you.
Is, I just got to tell you that there's a huge amount of money in finding human ancestors. You get funded.
Okay, so now it's a money thing? Alright, dude.
Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith for $2 says, even the Gutsick Gibbons? Yes, even those. Rochina
Gods
Minions Keller for $4.99.
Fahugu Gods, so come on, Fahugu Gods. Take it to the limit. Everybody to the limit. Everybody come on, Fahugu Gods.
I just had really dirty thoughts about, quote, pre-human. Hey, more power to you. Olivia Williams for $6.99 Beaverbuck says, did I say it was a love story? I lied. It's a horror movie with a Godzilla emoji. Well,
the Ghidorah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take a drink with the Ghidorah. Look.
All horror movies are love stories if you're not someone with real strong moral center.
Yeah, actually, like John Carpenter's The Thing, it's actually a love story about an alien who loves humanity so much that he wants to become part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. Also, I found out that some of my Star Trek players have never seen The Thing, and so we had an instance where they were like, "Wait, are we suddenly in The Thing?" And so someone sent like a GIF of Wilford Brimley having his hands chopped. The guy's like, "What the heck is it?" And I'm like, "Wait, you haven't seen The Thing?" Like, no. Like,
oh my god. One of the greatest experiences I've ever had is showing one of my roommates The Thing for the first time. She had never seen it. And getting to experience like the defibrillator scene with her, it was so good because she had no idea. Oh my god!
If you go with that scene blind, ooh. Glenn Hovind, full relation for 200 good. Argentinian pesos says, Dapper, I'm not a linguist. Fish, I'm not mega pretty. So much denial.
Excuse you? I didn't come here to be attacked like this.
You're also being complimented. You're being attacklemented. Attacklemented. That's what it is.
Attacklemented.
If you're the one that's found the earliest human ancestor, you're going to be very famous, and you're going to have lots of money to do your research with.
I mean, okay, the earliest human ancestor is probably like that blotch of like, I don't know, like protein remnants that were found in like 800 million year old sediments. No one's getting famous for that, buddy. Like, here's the thing, right? People do pay grant money on the basis of people finding what they're looking for in the fossil record. But you're not getting rich off that. No one is getting rich off of being a paleontologist. Even the famous ones that you know the names of. They're not rich, right? They're not living in mansions.
They should be.
Well, I mean, they certainly, I would say, would be better off being rich than, say, some of the people who are currently rich from things like, you know, totally not insider trading while in Congress.
People right now who have, like, all the money, I think that would be better if folks like, you know, archaeologists and folks who are contributing to, like, preserving the history of humanity and the planet, those people deserve it more.
So you like giving money to archaeologists? You know who else liked giving money to archaeologists?
Master of Science says, if you didn't want people to compliment your looks, then why were you just doing the Giga Chad pose?
But Vishanti, you know what other historical figure liked giving money to archaeologists? Hitler.
Oh my fuck.
So, congratulations, now you're agreeing with him. We should cancel all archaeology.
Stop.
I mean, it's a sad fact of the history of archaeology that his regime is in fact what funded a huge portion of what started archaeology. And there's just no way around it other than to just acknowledge it and try to move on and be more ethical in the future. Yeah.
This is why the Indiana Jones movies were made.
Yeah, to rehabilitate archaeology. Of course, Indy himself is ethically questionable when it comes to modern archaeological practice. It's like, hey, Indy, you know all those people that you're killing in the temple that you're trying to...
That should be in a museum, in its country of origin, right?
Yeah. Or, you know all those people that he fights? Those are usually the people who would be considered the actual legal owners of all those artifacts he's pilfering.
And
so he's just killing the people who own the artifacts.
Steal artifacts from people.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, anytime you see Indy running through a temple, shooting at the locals who are trying to prevent him, those are the people who own the artifacts. And who, in some cases, still live in the places he's excavating as their active homes, and he's killing them because they don't want him to steal their stuff. Indiana Jones is questionably ethical, but on the other hand, he does shoot a bunch of Nazis,
those British
too.
Museum morals.
Well, yeah. And he shoots a bunch of Nazis, too, so he's not all bad.
I'll take that.
Mark Agamotto, 1313 Smith for $2 says, Vishanti is beautiful, smart, and funny. And then Roshna for God's Minions Keller for $4.99 says, maybe if they stop naming species after their discoverer. Well, so according to the current rules for naming species, no one who names a species is allowed to name it after themselves. So there's
someone has to name it after you, but you can't name it after yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have a species named after you as long as you're not the one doing the naming. So I guess you could have like a gentleman's agreement with like another researcher and like, hey man, I'm going to name the next species after you if you name the next species that you find after me. Okay, sure, I guess. I guess technically you can do that. It seems weird, but it's also why we have like 8 different species of very different animals all named after Barack Obama, because like that all happened in like the year he was first elected. It's like every biologist is like, I'm going to name this Barack Obama. And it's like, oh no, that name is actually taken. Okay, I'm going to modify it slightly.
So there's not a whole lot of evidence out there, and all the evidence that's there is interpreted from the belief that that's humans and not apes. But let's
It's not interpreted from a belief.
Yeah,
It's
humans.
just literally comparing.
see what the actual evidence shows.
That's what the evidence
This
shows.
is Nebraska
you
Man.
clown.
Oh, Nebraska Man. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to take a drink for Nebraska Man. So here's the thing about Nebraska Man, right? Nebraska Man was in fact a peccary tooth, but it never really made it into the like public discourse much. The closest that happened was that during the Scopes trial, there was a consideration of maybe bringing up Nebraska Man as a point in favor of evolution, because remember the defense was trying to make this a trial about evolution, right? That's what they wanted. That's why they agreed to pay the defense lawyers as well as to pay whatever fine was going to be assessed, which ultimately it was assessed. That's why they were doing this. Also, when Scopes said that he had taught evolution, he wasn't actually sure that that was true. When he was approached by a group of people who wanted to challenge the law that said that you couldn't teach evolution in, what was it, Kentucky? He was like, well, I might have taught evolution, I don't really remember. And they were like, what if you said that you did? I was like, okay, I guess. So yeah, he admitted to a crime that he wasn't actually sure he had actually committed, and he was in fact convicted of that crime because it was a crime. And yes, it was a PR disaster for creationists. But like, in that trial, some of the lawyers were thinking about talking about Nebraska Man, but then the judge basically made a ruling like, this isn't really about whether evolution is true or not, it's about whether or not this man broke a law. So we're done with arguing about whether or not evolution is true. And so it didn't actually make it into the trial. And then by the time the trial was over, it had been discovered to actually be a peccary tooth. And the amount of time that was around where like it was thought to actually be a possible hominid, which was never universally accepted as, was basically a few years. And it was never reconstructed the way that this guy is showing it by any scientist, because this reconstruction that he's showing on screen is an illustration from the London Illustrated News, which was a tabloid from London.
Oh, Tennessee. The Scopes trial was
Tennessee, there you go, thank you. Rochna Fukugad's Minions Keller.
Bahugwa gods.
I'm never gonna get that. For $1.99 says
Yeah,
at
you are.
Shanti, teach Dapper how to say Fukugads.
Bahugwa gods.
If you want me to pronounce it that way, you should spell it that way.
Bahugwa gods. That's how it's spelled. It's phonetic. Bahugwa gods.
No, because you're putting in a U that's not in there.
You don't know this. Dude, this is one of the biggest culture fails, like,
Yeah, that's okay.
someone from our generation can have. I'm going to send you the song, and you're going to get it stuck in your head, and then you're going to know forever how to pronounce
You are
Bahugwa
assuming that
gods.
I'm going to watch it.
They made a whole magazine article and a whole culture.
Oh, they made a whole magazine article. Yeah, in the London Illustrated News, a tabloid that's about on the same level as the Weekly World News in America, if you're more familiar
It was
with that.
published in a tabloid. Checkmate, atheists.
Yeah. Tabloid writers made an image of a so-called Nebraska Man. Ha! Zerolon, who's been a member for 10 months, says, everyone throw money at the Dapper one. Thank you, I would appreciate that. Although I do notice that you spent your free membership milestone to say that.
They found a tooth in association with some tools.
Nope, that's a lie. There were no tools in association. Let's take a drink.
I just make stuff up.
There are tools in the area, but they're much later, and they're from, modern humans.
They call it Nebraska Man. They discovered it in 1922 in Nebraska. That's why it's called Nebraska Man. So they used that as evidence for...
Cognitive trifurcation says, but Dapper isn't from your generation. He's millions of years old.
It's true.
Yeah, you got me.
Yeah.
You got me on that one.
You guys would
Also,
not
this thing
understand
about-
the dinosaur memes from the Jurassic. It would go right over your heads.
So this thing about Nebraska Man and all the other fakes that were very, definitively demonstrated to be fakes.
Mhm.
It doesn't make his case the evolution isn't true because people are making fakes. Every
Right.
creationist does this, and it just makes their case look dumber.
Also, if we want to go into who has fallen for more hoaxes, evolutionary biologists or
It's the creationists.
yeah, it's by far the creationists. Like,
I mean,
everything
good
Ron Wyatt
grief.
has ever said in his entire life is basically under the
It's
category
fake.
of fake. Right. Oh, I found
Yeah.
the chariot wheels of Pharaoh's chariots under the Dead Sea. No, what
Like,
you found
no, you
was
didn't. You found
coral and
coral.
a shipwreck from a modern ship.
I found the Ark. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
I found the Ark of the Covenant. No, you didn't.
No,
I
you
found
didn't.
lifeblood. No, you didn't.
No, none of these are true. And the thing is, also remember Teriyaki Ark?
Mm-hmm.
The guy who literally
Yep.
aged bits of scrap wood in teriyaki sauce and sent this to creationists so that because he had found the Ark. They bought that hook, line, and sinker while the wood still smelled of teriyaki. You could smell the soy
That is
and sugar
literally
wafting off of it.
Tropic Thunder levels of ridiculous.
Yes.
Because that's how Kirk Lazarus dyes his skin in Tropic Thunder. He uses soy sauce.
He should have sent them complimentary booty sweat with the soy sauce.
I know, right? He should have. Yes.
Al Pacino's
I can't
booty
have
sweat. All right, Josh McGee's just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, so let's take 5 drinks. Thank you very much. 1, 2, 3,
Nah.
4, 5. Liz D for $5 says, notice how it's always they who do everything, not a scientist who made a mistake and a newspaper guy who hyped it AIG as a bag of Kentoven. I'll take a drink.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I were going to say everything at a tabloid level that's been published is now an embarrassment for the people who would otherwise be in favor of that kind of thing being published, once again, it's not the evolutionary biologists who are going to come out the worst.
Yep.
Zerolon for $5 says, AIG is a thing Boroutharians are known for, filled with the organ that is adjacent to it. There, Dapper, not a free one. Thank you very much. And then Glenn Hoven, full relation for 200 Argentinian pesos, says, Dapper, I'm not a linguist. Chat. Okay, boomer.
Okay, boomer.
First,
Yes.
I'm way too old to be a boomer. And second,
Boomer's a state of mind.
not a linguist. Still not a linguist. And then Renee Reborn for $5 says, hoping YouTube billing is going to cooperate today with a Mothra. Well, it looks like it did. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And let's...
Dr. Tapioca Weasel. His name was Lance. Lance! What did I just hear? Lance! Lance!
All right, here we go.
Evolution in the monkey trial or the Scopes trial.
Okay, it was not presented in the Scopes trial. I have checked the entire... Look, you can download the transcript of the trial, right? You can search for Nebraska Man. You can search for Hesperopithecus. It's just not in there, right? It's just not. Download it yourself and double check me. Maybe I missed it when I was checking it, but when I was checking that transcript, it just wasn't in there. And I know because I've addressed this claim from multiple creationists, and I've gone to the trial transcript and searched for anything that could be related to Nebraska Man. It just wasn't introduced.
Those drawings were published in the Illustrated London News in 1922.
Yeah, dude. A tabloid. What is the London Illustrated News? What is that, right? Because if I told you, oh, hey, man, you know how I know that, I don't know, Jesus is fake? Because the Weekly World News put a picture of Jesus in it, and it turns out that story doesn't check out completely. Okay, yeah. That's
All right.
The Weekly World News story probably isn't going to check out, but that doesn't mean anything about whether or not Jesus is or was real. Roshna Fuquagod's Minions Keller for $1.99 says, I found Jesus' foreskin. Ron Wyatt, probably. Well, him and like every third Catholic church throughout Europe in the Middle Ages, right?
Yeah.
They actually had to come up with a theology about like God multiplying relics the same way that he multiplied the fish and loaves in the feeding of the 5,000 to account for how many like Jesus's foreskins or how much of Mary's breast milk was floating around. Yeah.
That's fetish material.
A little bit.
Like,
A little bit. Let's see. What was the last relic I saw? I think it was a finger bone. It was the finger bone of Elizabeth of Moscow. It was recent enough that
Oh.
it was almost certainly actually her finger bone and not just some legendary finger bone, because she was killed towards the beginning of the Bolshevik Revolution by being tossed down a mine shaft. Yes. Yeah. Well, she was the widow of a Romanov family, like minor noble, and after her husband was murdered, she spent her time like running orphanages and wearing nuns' habits, even though she never actually took vows. And that's what she spent most of her time doing. But, you know, she was the widow of a Romanov, so down the mine shaft.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what happened to the orphans. Probably nothing great, but probably not the mine shaft.
Oh my god, Metageeky said, so you have the foreskin, I have Jesus's baculum.
Well, first I would be very surprised, because I don't think there are any known human bacula, but, you know, sometimes chimps have bacula, but they're very, very, very small. And it's very unusual. Most chimps do not have a baculum.
Ah! Grace Sprocket, well, of course you'd toss a minor noble down a mine shaft.
Aha!
Minor, M-I-N-E-R.
And she didn't even mine any ore down there. What a lazy, worthless person. Also, a whole bunch of nuns were also thrown down there who were working at the orphanage. So, you know.
People saw this illustration of what these pre-humans look like. Well, unfortunately, it turned out to be a pig's tooth.
Nope, it was a peccary, which is
yeah,
not a tooth pig.
Jillian is reminding you there's Scott Bacula. Duh.
Well, yes. That's true. Scott Bakula, a.k.a. Captain Archer. Who, by the way, Scott Bakula is the reason that we now know that Quantum Leap and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia take place in the same universe. That's just a fact now. You gotta deal with it.
Oh boy!
It was extinct in North America, but not South America. There's still these pigs in South
Alex Markle says, Dapper, are you saying that the Bolsheviks went a little far in purging the bourgeoisie from society? Maybe a little bit.
No!
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Also, replacing the kulaks with collective farms that resulted in a famine. Maybe that wasn't a great idea. I don't know. You know.
Yeah.
Especially since most of the kulaks, yeah, they were technically landowners, but it's not like they were living high and like oppressing the working class. They were subsistence farmers mostly, and then some of them made enough to sell.
Unwelcome nuance, I think.
Yeah. It turns out that when you have a violent revolution, drink for Godzilla, you don't always do targeting super well. A lot of people get caught in that crossfire who maybe shouldn't have. Yep. And also it turns out that centrally planned collectivized farming just means famines. Everywhere, all the time, every single time you try to do collectivized, centrally planned farming, you get famines. There just are no exceptions. So don't do that. Yeah. Turns out that while there are lots of problems with capitalism, sometimes markets are actually an efficient way to distribute certain things.
South America. So this whole evolutionary thing, what was used to discredit creationism in the Scopes trial was a pig's tooth.
Except it wasn't, but okay. I mean, it was a peccary tooth, but it wasn't used to discredit creationism.
But it was shown as being a pre-human.
Also, you know what young Earth creationists never mention? Is the fact that all the creationists in the Scopes trial were all old Earth creationists. All of them were like, yeah, of course the Earth is millions of years old. They didn't know it was billions at the time. No one did. But yeah, no one ever mentions that. They were all old Earthers.
So, that's one example. I think that was an honest mistake, by the way.
Of course it was. The guy who
it
found
was an honest mistake. Oh my god.
It was. Like, there's no one who's saying it was a hoax. Mistakes happen. The guy who found it wasn't a professional paleontologist, wasn't a professional paleoanthropologist, comparative anatomist. He wasn't any of those things. He was a guy who, like, owned a ranch and who did amateur fossil hunting for fun. He found a tooth, and he thought it looked like an ape tooth, which it did. He thought the ape it looked the most like was a human, which...
Bingo!
Arguable, but... Oh, hey, wait a minute. I am seeing that we have 102 concurrent viewers right now, but only 45 likes, which means that, unfortunately, I like less than half of you, half as well as you deserve, so hit that like button so you don't get bilboed again. No one wants to get bilboed.
They were trying to do decent science, but they messed it up. So Nebraska Man was a pig. Pilt down...
Peccary, which is an entirely different family. It's kind of like saying that, like, I don't know, like a bear and a dog are both just dogs, right? Like, no, it's a separate family. They're not the same thing. Are they related? Yes. Are they more closely related than most other members of Artiodactyla? Yeah. A peccary is a whole lot more like a pig than it is like a camel or a cow, but it's still not actually a pig.
He's just gonna name hoaxes and go, haha, see, stupid evolution. And I'm like, guy, that you don't realize that this is making your case look stupid.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, and look, I understand why this might sound like a tu quoque argument, but the thing is, what we're driving at is the unequal standards, right? If there have been hoaxes, therefore this entire field of study is invalid, is a valid argument. Like, if that logic works, then we have real big problems for young Earth creationism. Because, yeah. My Unfinished Journey for $6.66 says, Hail Nero, Hail Daps, and Vish. It's been said there are enough splinters of the one true cross to build a ship, and enough of Mary's milk to float it in. Renee Reborn for $5 says, aren't peccaries alive in Arizona? Yes. What's this nonsense about them being extinct in North America? So that particular species of peccary is extinct. And I'm willing to be generous enough to grant that he actually meant that species is extinct. Peccaries as a whole
I'm not that generous, but...
Okay. But yeah, peccaries as a whole are alive and well in North, Central, and South America. All over the place. The peccary that we have around here is mostly the javelina or collared peccary, so-called because of a white bit of fur around the base of the neck, which kind of looks like a collar. Sometimes they're actually pests around here because they're somewhat dangerous, they're relatively large, and they can get into, like, trash and stuff. Also, we've had an ocelot sighting here not that long ago.
Thank you, annoying all-purpose office newsletters, /me, /whatever your alias is this week. I was going to say this. Remember when Dapper didn't Bilbo us until after the break? Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Yeah, well, now I try to figure out if I need to Bilbo you right around the half-hour mark.
Tell you more about him in a minute. That's an intentional fraud where somebody intentionally tried to fool people, and it worked for over 40 years. Ramapithecus has been found to be fully an ape.
Okay, but it was always an ape. You're fully an ape, dude. You are fully an ape. Saying Ravapithecus was found to be fully an ape doesn't mean anything. What it was actually found to be was closer to Pongo, the genus of the orangutan, than it was to Homo, which meant it stopped being a hominin and started being a pongin. But that's not the same thing as suddenly finding out that it was an ape. Remember the name Ravapithecus? You know what Pithecus means? That's Greek for ape. And Crypto457 says, and jaguars have been making their way into the United States because they followed the javelinas. So jaguars have been in Texas for basically the entire time that landmass has been there. But there have been a few extra sightings north of the Mexican border, which in other states, which is less common. But hey, look, I'm excited. There's ocelots in Arizona again. I like that. I like ocelots. I don't want an ocelot as a pet. Something people have asked me before, because that just sounds like a disaster. But they're cool. Dr. Tapioca Weasel, sorry.
I was gonna say, if not friend, why friend-shaped?
I mean, it's a good question. And sure, you can have one as a friend, I suppose. But why I don't want one as a pet is because they piss all over the place.
Yeah. They don't have to be indoor pets.
Well, I suppose, yeah. If I was going to keep an ocelot, it would be an outdoor pet. Dr. Tapioca Weasel, who's been a member for 31 months, says, your mom is fully an ape. Take that. Well, mine isn't, because mine was a dinosaur. A good, hard-working, patriotic dinosaur. But Vishanti's mom was definitely an My Unfinished Sock for $2 with a sock profile picture. Says, don't forget to use your socks to like and share. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And yes, use your socks. It does help.
Australopithecus, including Lucy, is believed to be fully ape.
Yep. Just like everything. Dude, everything you're about to name is fully ape because that's how evolution works. That's how evolution works. It's like pointing out that, like, hey, Dalmatians and Dachshunds are both fully canine. Yeah, man.
Literally, this is just ad hominid.
You know what it is? And I'll take a drink for ad hominid.
Neanderthal man is now known to be fully human.
And also fully ape, and also
Also an ape!
Yeah. Also, what does it mean to be fully human? I don't know, because it's not a member of Homo sapiens, so it's not the same species as modern humans. You want to say, well, it's an advanced member of species or genus Homo? Okay, I guess if that's what you mean by human. That's one of the reasons why, actual scientists don't tend to use colloquial terms for these things.
Cognitive trifurcation. How can your mom have been patriotic if she was around millions of years before the concept of nations?
You don't know what the socio-political arrangement that we Ceratosaurs had back in the Jurassic was. Also,
I mean, when was the advent of dinosaur court?
I mean, like the end of the Triassic.
That's implying some kind of society.
Yeah, we lived in a society. Also, I want to point out that patriotism is not pride in one's nation, but one's country, and those are not the same concept.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, yeah. Nationalism and patriotism don't have to be the same thing. Now, if you're a big fan
Unfortunately, they are frequently conflated by the right wing.
Yes. Well, a part of that is because of the conflation between country and nation, which are not the same thing, and yet we like to treat them as they are. Because, for some reason, in the 20th century, the idea of the nation-state became super popular, even though it was never a reality anywhere at any time, at any point in history. Let's see. Do elaborate on Jurassic geopolitics. That's like a whole other stream. We don't have time for that here. Grayson Hawk from 199 says, there was a jaguarundi sighting in southern Arizona, too. Oh, yeah, I did hear about that.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, we're getting all the cool cats. Yeah, all the cool cats.
Nice.
Now, if we can just get a crab-eating fox sighting, which is not going to happen because they live down in, like, the Amazon, not, like, in northern Mexico. But still, that would be really cool. Or short-eared dog. I just want to get all the cool South American carnivorans to, like, just come hang out in Arizona is basically what I'm saying. Can you guys just move north a little bit? Kinkajous? Come on, who doesn't like a good kinkajou?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's like, what happens if you tried to make a raccoon into a monkey? You get a kinkajou. They're adorable, and they mostly eat fruit. And also, they also piss everywhere. It's a common theme with carnivorans.
Yeah, that tends to be a thing with, carnivorans.
Yeah, they just piss everywhere. It's all over the place. So if you ever have one that isn't already a domesticated animal, your entire house is just going to smell like urine. That's just what's going to happen.
Yeah, and then you could be like the hippo, which just windmills its poop everywhere.
Hey, you gotta market that territory someplace, somehow. I wonder how the cocaine hippos are doing. Have we heard any updates on the cocaine hippos in South America?
No, but I will say that the internet, including myself, is in love with Mudeng, the baby hippo.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It is adorable, but I just can't stop thinking, like, this is a little baby aquatic murder cow.
Well, and isn't it a baby pygmy hippo, though?
Well, yes, but also it's just
pygmy hippos aren't murder cows. They're too small for that.
The impulse to murder is there, my friend.
Right, but it's sort of like
just because they're not capable of, like, tearing you limb from limb without a lot of work.
True.
Doesn't mean that they're not feeling.
They would if they could, but they can't, so they don't.
Exactly. But Mudeng is very cute.
Cro-Magnon man is known to be fully human, and Homo erectus fully human.
Well, okay, first of all, Cro-Magnon is just a way to say, like, early anatomically modern Homo sapiens from, like, Europe. That's literally all that means, which is why it's not used in literature anymore. So I will say yes, and under any definition that you could possibly imagine for fully human, Cro-Magnon man does check that box. But as for Homo erectus, again, what does it mean to be fully human? Because I'll tell you what, Homo erectus is also fully ape. But the thing is, what creationists are as good at defining human as they are at defining kinds or information, in that they just don't try.
This display named 30 to 50 annoyingly feral peccaries. These letters.
Good one.
Cognitive trifurcation says that pygmy hippos are murder cows the same way that my long-haired orange cat is a murder floof. Telling you, you put a cat near birds, those birds will cease to exist.
Yeah.
Just how they do.
Just like the Norwegian parrot. Mine in for the fjords. Anyway.
Mine in for the fjords. Ex-parrot.
So, as time goes on, they sort themselves out.
What does that mean? What do you mean?
They sort themselves out?
What does that mean? What does he mean by that? What does that phrase mean in this context? I'm so confused.
So the Ramapithecus, this is from David Pilbeam in Science magazine. A group of creatures once thought to be our oldest ancestors have been bumped out of the human family tree. Most of the people now believe that these few
Science
jawbones...
changes, therefore it's all wrong, you can't trust it, therefore fake. Man,
Right.
shut up.
And also, Ramapithecus spent a very short amount of time being even considered to be a hominin, and it was never a universal consensus that it was a hominin. It was always controversial, and then suddenly, Roshna Quad's Minions Keller.
Gods.
I'm gonna keep going with it. For 199 says, so pygmy hippos are just larger house cats? I mean...
No, man, they're just like
no.
smaller...
They're murder cats. They're aqua
smaller
murder cows.
versions. Yeah, they're aquatic murder cows. That's just what they are.
They're miniature
Yeah.
aquatic murder cows. Like a
They
miniature
don't
horse.
swim. They just walk along the bottom of the water like psychopaths.
It's true, yeah. Hippos don't swim.
Because they're just muscle. They're
Mhm.
tanks.
Yeah. The fact that hippos don't swim, they just walk along the bottom, is always, like, just baffling.
It's unsettling.
It really is. Yeah, like, how are you going to be an aquatic mammal and then just forgo learning how to swim? Like, okay, no, I choose not to swim.
No,
I choose
I'm
to
just
sink.
like almost 0% body fat. I'm just gonna like be all muscle and just walk along the bottom. I don't need to swim.
Dutch Tunicate Demonic Selection for $2 says, I learned of a parrot only to learn it's extinct. Frowny face. That's too
Aw.
bad. Yeah. Look, I don't know if you guys know this, but we're currently living through a mass extinction. Like, the rate of species extinction right now is similar to the rate of species extinction during previous mass extinctions. Like,
And it's being caused by humans.
yeah. Yeah. So,
Good
hey,
job, us.
congratulations, you guys. You did it. How's the next mass extinction? Dinosaurs never caused a mass extinction. We didn't.
Some teeth were an orangutan, not a human.
Well, no, not an actual orangutan. A member of the same, like, subfamily. Which... Look, creationists, it is possible to not deceive your audiences and still try to make the same points, right? You don't have to say orangutan. You can say it was more like an orangutan than a human. Or you can say it was a pongin, which is a subfamily to which, orangutans
He
belong.
doesn't know what that is.
I guess. Although I actually did find that he has, like, a biology master's degree or something. So he doesn't have as much excuse as
So
I
he
thought.
is lying.
Yeah, probably.
He is lying.
I've been giving
Good
I've
job.
been giving Pete a lot of benefit of the doubt because I thought he was just a pastor. But then when I looked up,
Nope.
like, his, he had some page on some creationist ministry that most people have never heard of. I don't even remember its name. But in there, it listed his qualifications. And he's got a master's in some field of biology. So
So
he
again,
probably knows
he
better.
knows better. He's just lying. Also,
yeah, it seems like it.
yeah, 30 to 50 annoyingly feral peccaries newsletter says inerrant, unchanging translation of a translation of a translation of left to right pre-Yiddish scrolls.
Yes, you gotta love those pre-Yiddish scrolls. That's the original language of the Hebrew Scriptures, pre-Yiddish.
Left to right.
Well, yeah, left to right
That's
pre-Yiddish.
how you know it was correct.
Right. I don't know why the Yiddish ever switched to right to left. Which also, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Hebrew script is really bad at encoding a Germanic language. It was probably a mistake.
It's not super great at encoding medieval Spanish either, but hey,
Yeah.
Ladino
yeah.
and Hakatia.
Hey, stop trying to make the Hebrew alphabet fit all sorts of Indo-European languages. The Latin alphabet is already not great at most of them. Hebrew is even worse.
I mean, tell that to Jews living in those countries, because, yeah. The
Hey.
only really good language outside of itself that it's good at, like, encoding information for is Arabic, but there's a reason for that.
Well, yeah, that's because the Arabic alphabet and the Hebrew alphabet have an almost one-to-one correspondence between letters. It's
And they're they're semantically related, so
Yeah.
it's not that far.
yeah. Arabic is just overall much more conservative when it comes to consonants.
Mm-hmm.
Although they did tell P to get the F out. No P's in Arabic, only B's.
P to get the F
Piltdown Man
out.
was the one that had human-like teeth and human-like piece of skull. But they exposed the fact in 1953 that it was a hoax. So notice it went from 1912 to 1953 as the
Hoaxes were
icon.
exposed as hoaxes, therefore science doesn't work, except that's exactly how science works. The reason that they were proven to be hoaxes is because science works.
In fact, do you know why it was investigated? To see if there was something funny about the fossil? Because additional data was coming in, and Piltdown Man didn't fit into the emerging picture of hominin evolution. And so we were like, none of this is making a whole lot of sense, because like the brain case is too big given how primitive the face is. It's in the wrong location since all the actual hominins we're finding are all in like southern and eastern Africa. Nothing about this is adding up. And recently, microscopes that were good enough to detect things like, microware from tools had been invented. And so they could be used to check for wear pattern from tools. And it turns out they were found. So I'm sorry that before the technology to detect the hoax was invented, that the hoax wasn't detected. But the entire reason that it was detected at all was because people started to notice how little it fed the rest of the data. And they were like, hey, this is an anomaly.
Fearmonger says, no P in Arabic sounds uncomfortable.
Just make sure you wipe an odd number of times.
Oh my god. These are deep cuts.
Hey, I didn't come up with the Sharia law. But it's in there. Wipe an odd number of times and step into that bathroom with your left foot, not your right foot.
I can't say anything because there is halakha around going to the bathroom in Judaism, so...
I mean, why wouldn't there be?
Why wouldn't there be? Exactly.
Look, both the halakha and Sharia have something in common, which is that they encompass virtually everything you can possibly think of.
Aspect of life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like when you put on your shoes, you put them on like right shoe, left shoe, and then you tie the left first and then the right. And I thought that was dumb, and then I was like, well, you're already there at the left shoe. Just go on and tie it. That makes sense to me.
Well, it makes sense as a reasonable order to do that in. It makes less sense as a prescription that you must follow.
Yeah, well, again.
As advice, this makes sense. As a law, makes less sense.
A lot of them don't.
What?
Fahugwa gods.
Minor,
you have
minion
to pronounce the H. You can't skip the H. Fahugwa gods. Fahugwa gods.
H isn't a vowel, and yet you're using it as two different vowels.
It doesn't have to be a vowel. That is how it's pronounced. It's Fahugwa gods.
No. For 199 it says, Happy 6 Max Extinction, humanity. Which, yes, happy 6 Max Extinction. Good times.
For evolutionary history. So it's interesting because it lasted for over 40 years, and I wondered why that was, but then I read this book by Marvin Lubenow, and he said that very few people see the original fossils. They have to make casts of them, because most of them you can't handle without
Maybe it's because they're fragile.
It is. I mean, to be fair, he's telling us that right now.
Of harming them.
Yeah,
so most scientists have only seen the plastic casts of...
So yeah, here's the real...
It's a cast. It's literally a replication.
Yeah,
why do you care?
The real reason is that we didn't have the technology to detect the hoax. Right? Like, we literally didn't. So, like, you know how, like, people can detect, like, art forgeries, right? With, like, cool, like, chemical processes and, like, ultraviolet photography and all that stuff. Okay. Imagine you didn't have that. Go back 200 years and say you were presented with a painting that was claimed to be from some famous historic master painter, and you didn't have any of the technology that we now use to detect frauds. How would you know? Now, you might be suspicious because it doesn't have a great provenance. Okay, great. But can you say for certain it's a hoax if you don't have the technology to detect the hoax? No. No, you don't. So what do? I mean, you remain skeptical, but you might include that as like a potential member of this artist's output. The same thing happened with Piltdown Man, right? We literally didn't have the ability to determine that it was a hoax until decades after it was produced. But over the course of the decades where we couldn't have said for certain it was a hoax, it became less and less central to the story of human evolution as it became more and more obviously anomalous among the purported hominin fossil that were being found. And that's why it became less and less written about and talked about. And then eventually, yeah, we did invent the technology to figure out that it was a hoax. And it turns out it was. But you know what we haven't found to be a hoax? You know, the entire rest of the catalog of hominins, right? Like Australopithecus afarensis, Australopithecus africanus, Australopithecus garhi, Australopithecus sediba, Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Homo rudolfensis. None of these have been found to be hoaxes. So the fact that there is a hoax in the history of science doesn't mean anything. Well, I mean, it does mean something. It just doesn't mean what Pete wants it to mean. But you know what? We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to refresh my beverage. And when we get back, we will jump back into it after a quick commercial message from me. Because I got to pay the bills. All right. We will be back after this. Enjoy, hopefully, the audible musical stylings of Beethoven. I say hopefully and audible because sometimes OBS is just like, no, what if I mute? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I guess. All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. I am, of course, back with Vishanti. Vishanti is currently off of camera, but that's okay because you know what we're going to do? We're going to put Vishanti on an axolotl.
Yay!
Now, Vishanti, you are riding a very pink and very happy axolotl with little pink hearts.
Hooray!
Yeah. All right, so now that we're back, real quick, guys, I want to say thank you so much for all your generosity, both today as well as just in general, because without direct support from my viewers, the channel just simply couldn't continue. And YouTube has been kind of rough lately for me with the algorithm, so it is extra appreciated in the last few months. And so if you are currently enjoying what I do here, but you are not financially supporting, and that's something you can both afford to and want to do, then I would suggest either the Patreon or the channel memberships. The Patreon is where I get to keep the most. So that's where I would prefer. Both of those get you early access to my scripted videos. They get you access to my super secret Discord server that's just for supporters. It also gets you, if you are a member, it gets you various emojis in the chat, monthly milestone membership chats. Membership milestone chats, yeah, that's the way it is. A fancy badge. One of the big advantages of the Patreon is you can get a 50% discount, which you can't on the memberships. The Patreon starts at $1 a month. The memberships start at $1.99. There are higher tiers with higher perks if you want that, and both of those are great. But if you don't want to do a monthly or an annual thing, I have a wish list that is linked in the description. Vishanti also has a Vish list linked in the description. Vishanti also has a Patreon listed in the description. There's also a merch store right below this video. You see a merch shelf. If none of that interests you, click through and find other items that aren't listed in there, because I can only list, I think, like 40 items in there. And I have way more than 40 items of merch that you can get. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, baby onesies, blankets, pillows, towels, stickers, all sorts of stuff. So if any of that interests you, then yeah, please go check that out. And if a financial or like pledge or just gift is not something that's in the budget, or you're just not interested in that, that's absolutely fine. Please, no matter what, just like and share these videos, because it really does help. Vishanti, do you have anything that you want to plug as far as like your ways
I
people
put
can
a
toss
link
money
to
at
my
you?
Patreon in, and if for whatever reason anybody wants to help me fundraise for some life and / career goals, I can also put a direct link to my PayPal if you just want to toss a coin to your local Vishanti.
Yeah.
So, yep.
All right.
Because I will be partially employed in about a week, helping people register to vote. But other than that,
that will only last for a little while.
Yeah, things outside of that, I'm like,
I've actually double-checked my voting status a couple times, and not only am I registered to vote, I'm on the active early voting registry, so that way I will automatically get a ballot in the mail that I can just fill out and mail back.
Oh yeah, mail voting is just the greatest.
Yeah. Actually, I've had a few canvassers come by for different sides, and it's always interesting, because they do not know how to pitch political candidates to me, like me personally.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you guys.
Yeah, everybody in the United States, please make sure you're registered to vote, and then go actually vote for someone.
Yes. Yeah. Even if it's none of the above.
Yeah, as long as you vote, make sure you're participating.
Yeah. Remember, if you don't vote, then you don't get to complain. But also, if you did vote, then you voted for whatever it is, so you also don't get to complain. And in conclusion, you never get to complain. So just shut up. Anyway, here we go. Yeah, if you didn't vote, you don't get to complain because you could have voted otherwise. If you did vote, you're part of the problem. So...
the plastic models made from casts of the original. So a lot of people have never seen that the teeth were filed down and that they were dipped in acid to make them look old.
No, it's not that no one saw that. It's that no one could see that, because it took advanced microscopy to see that. And by advanced, I mean relatively speaking, right? That's the thing. It's like... It's so annoying. It's like, did you know that no one in Galileo's time could measure the stellar spectrum of distant stars? Man, what idiots. Like, yeah, man, can you believe that spectrometers hadn't been invented in the time of Galileo? Wow. What idiots people were. I don't, like, what do you want from people, Pete? Do you want people to be able to look into the future and pluck technology out of the ether of, like, future inventions and then apply it back in the past? I don't know, but unless you're getting, like, genetic enhancements like a Suliban, I don't think that's a reasonable expectation for you. I'll bet Pete would actually agree to side with the side of those meddling time war people who were helping the Suliban out. Vishanti, are you still there? I don't think Vishanti's here. There's no way I could have gone on that much about Enterprise without her saying something. I'm going to type at Vishanti. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Come back, Vishanti. All right, here we go.
It was a deliberate hoax, and we know that, but they never have really found the perpetrator, and nobody's ever admitted it.
I mean, that's true. We'll take a drink for that. That is actually correct. No, we don't know for certain who it is. We have ideas, but oh, I did miss a super chat from Rochina Keller. Rochina Fukugua's Minions Keller for $4.99 says, "You know what else has been found to be a hoax? Dapper's members and patrons." That is true. They have not been found to be a hoax. In fact, they are like the opposite of a hoax. So yeah, there you go.
So those guys, I don't know how they could possibly look themselves in the mirror in the morning when they do stuff like that. That's just ridiculous.
Okay, who's the they? Because the vast majority of people didn't do Piltdown Man. What do... Oh, hey, drink from Mothra. Mothra is here, everybody. Oh, Discord's apparently being bad. Well, that's unfortunate. Thanks for letting me know, Vishanti, if you're watching this. I do appreciate being informed. I think that was a text message. Did I just get a text message? Oh. And, yes, it was. Discord is being a bitch, and BRB from Vishanti via text message. I'll take another drink for the other Mothra. Alright, so hopefully Vishanti will be back. But yeah, what I was saying is, like, who's the they that did Piltdown Man? Because, like, it's probably one or two guys. It's probably the guy who discovered it, whose name escapes me. If anyone knows it, let me know in the chat. But, like, Pete, how do you go to sleep at night or look yourself in the mirror at night knowing that there are creationists who believe Ron Wyatt about finding the Ark of the Covenant and the living blood of Jesus under the garden tomb, which, spoiler alert, absolutely is not Jesus' tomb, because that's literally impossible. At the very least, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre could be Jesus' tomb, although we don't have any evidence that it is. But at least it's not absolutely 100% confirmably not. Vandalia 1998 for $10 says, plus at the time we didn't have the amount of hominid fossils we do now, and we got more when we got more, we realized, wait a minute, I don't think this one fits the puzzle with the Mothra. Exactly. Vandalia 1998 is 100% correct about that. And let me advance the fancy avatar thing. So, here we go. We're at 41%. We could still do it. It is possible, but we're not on pace. Charles Dawson. Okay, yeah, Charles Dawson, yeah. Personally, I think there's a fair chance it was Charles Dawson, right? Because he's just wandering through a gravel pit and just happens to find the Piltdown Man skull. I don't know. Seems like the kind of thing that the guy who, faked the skull in the first place might do. So, Punk half dog, half canine for $5 says, it's like original sin. If you take a class in paleoanthropology, you become responsible for Piltdown Man. Oh, I'm going to be careful not to get on my original sin and how it is absolutely not a universal concept in Christianity soapbox, because it's not. And I really don't appreciate when, especially Christians, pretend that it is. It's like, guys, your particular group of Christians might believe in original sin in the way of, like, personal moral culpability for every human, but that is far from a universal Christian belief. And please stop pretending it is. Please stop pretending that's just the default Christian belief. Which, by the way, there are no default Christian beliefs.
And I love that illusion. Don't know how this guy does those things.
You don't know how someone would take a picture in which they also appear to be in facing the other way? Okay, jeez. Pete, I'm going to give you a couple options. One, it's literally just a picture of the back of the guy's shirt that's just been photoshopped onto the mirror, right? Like, it's just image editing. Another option is that he turned around and took a picture, then turned back and took a picture, and then just with the camera on a tripod so it doesn't move, and then just cut from one side to the other. Do you not know what a mask is, Pete? Of course he doesn't. Look at the look at the production quality. Of course he doesn't know what a mask is. Like, there could be a matte line there that you just can't see, Pete, that's masking out. You know what? It doesn't matter. The fact that Pete has absolutely no clue how very, very simple camera tricks work is not relevant. Although it does kind of give you an idea as to the level he's operating on.
So why do we know these things are fully human? Because now, as time goes on, we find more of their fossils. We find this in association within these tools and artifacts.
Okay, hold on. We're going to read the Roshina Fugakwad's Minions Keller for $4.99. super chat, and then we're going to talk about tools. I go to sleep knowing that young Earth creationists believe Ron Wyatt exists by playing American Dad or Squidbillies as background noise. Nice. All right, so when it comes to tools, here's the thing, right? So humans today use tools. That's pretty uncontroversial. Now, that means that at some point, assuming evolution is true, that the human lineage gained the ability to use tools. Probably before they became Homo sapiens. So, we should expect, if evolution is true, to find more and more primitive tools associated with older and older hominins. Guess what? We do. That's the expectation according to evolution. Hopefully, at some point, Discord will let Vishanti back on.
The world's first softball. Not really. I'm not sure what it was, but we know that they made it into something.
It was probably just a pounding stone to do things like crack open bones or nuts. Because both bones and nuts are hard things to pop open, but that contain nutritious stuff on the inside. Marrow for the bones and, the actual nut for nuts. And so if you can't crack open a nut or a bone, you smash it with something. In fact, chimpanzees today will fashion pounding stones and use them to crack open hard-to-eat foods so that they can get at the soft innards. There is currently, right now, people who work on chimpanzee archaeology, and one of the most common stone tools that we find made by chimpanzees of the ancient past, pounding stones. That was almost certainly a pounding stone.
And these little trinkets.
I don't even know what to say about that. I don't know what those were, where they were found. He just showed some
back.
shapes. Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. Vishanti, did you know that ancient hominins are found with tools, therefore they can't have evolved?
Oh.
Even though, if
Okay.
evolution is true, we should probably expect that the ancestors of humans progressively got better and better at making tools.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that the tool-making technology in the fossil record improves as we go higher and higher in the fossil record, going closer and closer to modern time. Yeah.
Huh.
It does remind me, speaking of Stone Age tools and whatnot, one day I asked Chesh how she would stat out an addle-addle for D&D, and she tried to answer that without knowing what an addle-addle is, and so she answered it assuming it was like a race option. And I'm just like, you don't know what this is, do you? And she's like, nope. I'm like, I can tell. So I get to explain what a spear thrower is to Chesh.
Nice.
Yeah.
Pieces of jewelry.
Okay, here, look, dude, you can't just show me a bunch of just artifacts without giving any kind of context as to why you think this is a problem, right? Like, okay, you're showing me what looks like something that someone strung a cord through as like a necklace, right? Like claws and teeth as a necklace. Okay, great. What is the point you were trying to make? What hominins were those associated with that you think that now indicates that they somehow weren't apes or something? Like, what are you actually showing me, dude? You can't just show stone tools and then say, therefore, no human evolution. Even if your argument were accurate that non-humans can't make tools, even if that were true, you haven't tried to even establish that these are associated with things that people are trying to say aren't human. Like, this isn't just like, oh, you're wrong, Pete. This is the very structure of your argument. Doesn't make any sense.
Right,
You're not making an argument.
Even corvids and otters use tools to get at food. Like otters use stones on their belly, and corvids will use rocks, and they'll drop things. Like, they're smart. What is his point?
Yeah, I don't know. My favorite, by the way, with corvids is dropping snails in front of cars so that the car crushes the snail shell, and then they go in and grab the snail innards and eat some escargot.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
That's right.
Yeah. It's been a very long time since I had escargot. I should have some more. I liked it. It's expensive and hard to find in the United States, though. Oh well. I'll just stick with eating like clams and octopus when it comes to mollusks. That's way easier to find in the USA. Yeah. Sometimes mussels, but really you don't get mussels unless you're actually like at a coastal area, because I feel like mussels have not penetrated the general food culture of the United States. And so you really only get them when you're like at the coast. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Sure.
Anyway, Roshina minions for $4.99 says
gods.
pounding stones are what we use. Pounding stones are what we use on AIG's bag of bacula. I'll take a drink for that. Which is, by the way, that's a very painful mental image. Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine for $5 says, technology only advances when people are able to teach each other about it, so naturally things accelerated a lot after written languages were invented. That is true. That is true. Although all this talk about Stone Age and whatnot is reminding me, at some point I want to try playing a plain Gia campaign for 5e, which is fortunately a third-party product, which means I don't feel guilty if I buy it, because I am absolutely not buying any more WotC products. But I'll buy a third-party 5e campaign setting. So, yeah, because, look, the Pinkertons were the last straw for me, and Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah. Somebody said that at, like, we had a chapter meeting for the group that I organized with this week, and somebody goes, oh, yeah, they called in the Pinkertons, and there have been very few times in my life where my jaw has just hit the floor.
Mm-hmm.
But that is one of them. The Pinkertons. Oh.
Wait, Alex Markle says, fun
Spoiler
fact...
alert. If you call in the Pinkertons, you're not the good guys.
Yeah, no, that's just... it's just true. Right?
Yeah.
It's like calling in the Stormtroopers. There's no good reason to do it.
Yep.
And you can wonder which version of Stormtroopers I'm talking about, the historical ones or the ones from space fantasy, because the answer is both. Alex Markle says, fun fact, American alligators have been documented using sticks to lure nesting birds to their mouths to eat them. That is wild, and I want you to send me information about that. Also, Dutch Tunicate Demonic Selection says, mussels are very popular here in Minnesota. Oh, that's good. I'm glad to see that the culinary use of mussels is not just restricted to like coastal areas, because I like them. You'll also see mussels in high-end restaurants in Colorado. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just not going to fancy enough restaurants, because I can guarantee you, I'm not going to fancy restaurants. For me, like, fancy is like, hey, this burger joint isn't fast food. It's like we went to like I don't know, like Applebee's. Like, oh, the burgers are made to order.
Sit-down restaurant.
Yeah.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, that's what makes it fancy for me.
Down in association with these supposed pre-humans.
Which ones, dude? Which ones?
So we know they were fully human, had fully human capabilities.
What does that mean? I'm going to take a drink for
so
fully
dumb.
human. Look, there are certain terms that creationists just refuse to meaningfully define. Human, information, kind. All of these are terms that do not mean anything when creationists say them. They're just vague
mean
words.
Whatever you want them to mean.
Exactly. They're just vague conceptual categories that people think they know what they mean. But when you actually get down and say, okay, what do you mean by this? How do you tell if it's a human or a different kind, or if information has gone up or down? Because it's fine to have loosely defined or even undefinable conceptual categories in general language. But if you're trying to overthrow the scientific consensus, where exact definitions are key, and where scientists come up with exacting definitions for words that can otherwise be ambiguous, but in this field have an exact definition, if you can't engage on that level, you're not critiquing science. You're just engaged in sophistry. That's what's happening. Fully formed is another one. Like, I'm writing a script with Brian Thomas, and he's like, well, the Archaeopteryx has a fully formed wing. And I'm like, what does that mean? What would a half-formed wing look like? Because I'll tell you, Archaeopteryx's wing is way more like a velociraptor arm than it is like a pigeon wing.
All right, everybody, get your fwings in the chat.
Yeah, put some fwings in the chat.
Neanderthals, we found where they buried their dead, and they put things like this in the grave with them.
So, look, the intentional burial narrative around certain Neanderthal finds, there you go, has been questioned. I don't know whether or not it is reasonable to conclude that they were actually burying their dead. I am perfectly fine to say that they were, but I know that it has become contentious as of the last few, 10 years or so, right? So I don't have a dog in that fight. I don't know how to assess the information well enough to actually form an informed opinion on that. And so I am happy to say either one of them is reasonable, and I will not contest that they bury their dead. So. That's all I have to say about that aspect. Is like, yeah, Neanderthals could very well have buried their dead. I would have no problem with that. It wouldn't make them Homo sapiens. It doesn't remove them as a non-Homo sapiens member of the hominid family tree and therefore a part of the story of human evolution. But sure, I mean, they were very closely related to Homo sapiens. It's no surprise that there would be a lot of behavioral overlap between those two species, right? Sort of like there's a lot of overlap between wolves and coyotes in terms of behavior, but not complete overlap, right? They do behave differently in different ways, but they're very similar, and they have a lot of overlap. So, sure, they probably did a lot of the same things.
So they were fully human. So, you know, we found these drawings and
I mean, everyone that I am aware of attributes these to Homo sapiens. So yes, no matter what your definition for fully human is, I guess these are made by fully humans. I don't
Fully
think
human.
I don't think anyone's contesting that these were made by Homo sapiens, but okay, sure.
pictographs and everything and associated with
That's not a whatever, it doesn't matter.
them. And so they were fully human. That's what it looks like from the actual observational evidence.
Except you haven't told us what that means. You've given us artifacts and haven't told us what they are, where they were found, what they were associated with, until you got to Neanderthals and actual Homo sapiens. And then you said they were fully human, at which point I still don't know if what you mean by fully human would encompass Homo sapien, or sorry, Homo neanderthalensis. But like, it obviously would encompass Homo sapiens. So all that we've gotten so far is... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say this is exactly what Professor Dave was ranting about in his video this week that came out, like, how to debunk creationists on, like, biological evolution. They don't know how transitional species work. So they think half-formed is like, oh, you're a duck on the top and a crocodile on the bottom. Like, it's just so dumb.
Yeah, it's very, very frustrating. And the thing is, actually, in this Brian Thomas video that I'm looking at, he actually gives a reasonable definition for transitional species. And then's like, so what's transitional about this species? And I'm just like, okay, well, let me tell you. And so I just start listing transitional parts of that species that he's calling out. Like, that's what. That's what. Like, I don't see it. Yeah, I can tell.
In the Creation Museum, I went to a presentation by Dr. David Minton. I mentioned it earlier, the professor.
Hey, I responded to that presentation, and also in my response to this presentation by Dr. David Menton, the late Dr. David Menton, I have the internal chat from Answers in Genesis in my video. You want to know why, Vishanti?
Why is that?
Because I was in that chat live debunking it as it was going. Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine for $2 says that they're full members of genus Homo. I mean, yeah, if all you mean by human is member of genus Homo, then sure. Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Homo neanderthalensis, all of these are fully humans, I guess. I doubt that's what he means, but I don't know. Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith for $2 says the only crocoduck is King Crocoduck. I do remember his debate with Kent Hovind, where Kent tried to say that a burning fire, like firewood burning, is an example of mass or matter to energy conversion. That is described with E equals mc squared. Which, no, it's not. That's chemical energy turning into thermal energy, and that's not at all the same thing as mass converting to energy. If we were to capture all that smoke, and also calculate how much oxygen went into the fire, and then also weigh the firewood afterwards, like the ashes and coal that was left, or charcoal that was left behind, you would actually find that mass was conserved in these reactions. Yeah. Also, Kent had never heard of the Casimir effect, and so kept calling it the Kashmir effect, and even tried to tell a joke about cashmere sweaters, where the only way to find that joke funny is to yourself also not be able to tell the difference between Casimir and Kashmir. So, yeah.
It's painful.
It might have been one of the most embarrassing debates for Kent that I've ever encountered. I mean, I think mine was also pretty good, but that one was also really, really pretty... It was something. All right,
I mean, asking him to define dinosaur, and he's just like, well, I don't know. That just...
I mean, look,
what an idiot.
At the risk of tooting my own horn, it was a bit of a chef's kiss. And I remember when I got to that point in the debate, I wasn't on camera, so you didn't see it, but like my jaw just dropped to the floor, and I was like, "Holy crap!" He just admitted it. He doesn't know what a dinosaur is. All right, but let's see what we got here for chimps and Australopithecus afarensis and humans.
Just the arrogance. They think, oh, well, I can just look at something and tell what it is. Like, no.
No, you really
nope,
can't.
That's not how that works.
I can trivially easily find things that aren't dinosaurs that you will look at and think are a dinosaur if you don't know what a dinosaur is. It will be extremely easy. All right, here we go.
Sir at Washington University, and he put these up on the stand, and he says, can you tell which one's human? Well, forget the fact that one's got wider teeth. Two of them are really narrow, and one was really wide in the upper palate area there, and the one that's really wider is human. And you can tell this every time, the difference between the ape kind and the human kind.
Okay, hey Pete, here's a thing though. If you look at the chimpanzee on the left, you'll notice that it's a very boxy tooth row, right? There's like an almost 90-degree turn, right between the incisors and the canines. And then it does go down to a narrow palate in both that and the Australopithecus, and the Homo sapiens does have a wider palate. But do you notice how in the Australopithecus afarensis, instead of a boxy shape between the incisors and the canines, in fact, even having a noticeable diastema between them, in the Australopithecus afarensis, it's actually like a subparabolic arch across that, which actually makes it directly intermediate between the chimpanzee condition and the Homo sapiens condition. You're showing how transitional Australopithecus is in this picture.
Yeah, you're literally showing a transition and going, this isn't a transition.
Right?
Stupid evolutionist.
Like it's right there.
Like, bro, I'm looking right at it. This is some like Big Brother level stuff.
Roshanov Fugukwad's Minions Keller for $4.99. It says fully human means having a chin.
Gods.
Fully human means having a chin and potentially a magnificent butt. Well, in that case, then it does, in fact, restrict it to Homo sapiens. But, I mean, when it comes to gluteus maximus muscles, very few gluteus maximus muscles are as maximus as those of Homo sapiens. Todd Ferguson,
Gorillas.
Proportionally not as magnificent, but they're up there. They're up there. Remember that gorilla that like all the Japanese women were like fawning over? That was weird.
Although, did you see Valdevia's caked up Bigfoot this week?
Yeah, I did. I did.
So good.
Although I will say that Japanese gorilla, if any gorilla were ever going to be called handsome, I mean that's probably one of them.
Yeah.
It also probably didn't help that he was apparently a very good dad.
Oh.
Yeah, it was very sweet with the kids. Todd Ferguson, Flurferman supervisor, who's been a member for 7 months, thank you very much, and is at the annual level, says, I like Led Zeppelin's Casimir. Also, AIG is a package of prepuces, which is not quite the same thing as a bag of dicks, but we'll take a drink. That's the kind of thing you give a king if you want to marry his daughter, and he doesn't think that you'll be able to actually get it.
Yeah.
Bible references.
Yes.
Look, if you're not prepared for a lot of deep-cut Bible references, this is not the channel for you.
Well, we do serve a very niche market.
It's true. People who are interested in Bibles and evolutionary biology, sometimes geology.
You're right. Pop culture, horror.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes Judaica.
Yeah.
That difference is always there. And then he put the skulls on the table. Well, if you're an ape, you have to walk bent over so your head is rotated back on your spine. And so the ones that look like they're looking at the ceiling, those are the ape fossils.
What?
The ones that look like they're looking at you, those are the human fossils.
Dude.
Oh my god.
Are you not noticing? The way that a skull rests does not tell you where the foramen magnum is, which is what he's trying to talk about. The foramen magnum is this Latin for big hole, right? And it's where your spinal cord, no, well, not your spinal cord, but your the nodal cord, right? The actual spine bundle of nerves enters into your skull to connect to the base of your brain, right? That comes through the foramen magnum. Now, if you have an anterior foramen magnum that comes in at the back of your skull, that means that you're probably walking quadrupedally because your skull is able to look forward while your spine is horizontal. If it's ventral, meaning at the bottom of the skull, then you're probably walking upright. But here's the thing. Australopithecus afarensis has a ventral foramen magnum. And looking
it walks
at them,
upright.
Yep. looking at them on a table doesn't matter, because what that's going to tell you is basically the angle between the base of the brain case and the base of the jaw, the lower jaw, the mandible.
Yeah.
But what does that have to do
It's
with
like
the place?
It's just the distribution of weight. It doesn't tell you where anything
Well,
is.
exactly. That angle doesn't tell you anything about the location of the foramen magnum. If David, I've never seen David Menton do this, right? Put out this test. I can't say that he did. But if he did, he was knowingly lying to you. Because David Menton was a human anatomist. He knows that this is a meaningless test for the location of the foramen magnum. He knows that. He knew that. So I don't know. I can't say if Pete Greer is actually telling the truth that this is something David Menton ever did. I've seen David Menton do things that are similarly dishonest. So it's not outside the realm of possibility. However, if he did do it, then he was being dishonest in doing it. Pillow Punk Half Dog Half Canine for $5 says, the handsome gorilla illustrates exactly why Neanderthal DNA still survives in our genome. H. sapiens ain't picky. I mean, you're not wrong. And hey, did you know that human head lice have their closest relatives in chimpanzee lice? But human pubic lice, their closest relative is the gorilla louse.
Oh dear.
So, think about that when it comes to handsome gorillas.
I'd rather not.
Why? Because you prefer Venom?
Yes.
What if it was Venom whose host was a gorilla?
No. I would be like, Venom, sweetheart, you and I both know this is not gonna work. Your noodle form is just fine. Okay. I can't wait for the new movie because Venom horse.
I mean, yeah, that does seem fun. But Venom is like the only part of the No Spider-Man Spider-Verse from Sony that seems to be doing okay.
Those movies are great.
Yeah.
I love them.
The rest of them, though, the ones that don't have Venom, less so. Look, Sony, stop trying to make a cinematic universe about spider people work when you don't have Spider-Man in it.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. No one cares about Morbius or Madam Web or any of this stuff. No one cares.
And Craven, they're trying, but
yeah, it's not going to work.
Because that's our normal position on our spine, looking straight ahead. So they're built to look straight ahead. So there really shouldn't be that much doubt between what's human and what's ape-like.
Oh my god!
The fact that you have to use this extremely dishonest test that actually tells you nothing on its own tells me that you don't have a good argument against human evolution or for your obvious division between apes and humans. Heather Schrodinger's fossil coon, who's been a member for 14 months and is at the amniote level, says the spinal cord develops from the notochord. Are you possibly confusing the spinal cord, nerve bundle, and the spinal column stacked vertebrae? Yes, I am. I blame the rum. Thank you. I do appreciate that. Jillian Addicted to Satan Wren says, Dapper, are you saying you didn't study with someone's mother in the Amazon before she died? That's true. I have never done that. Yep. Yeah, Matt, did anyone actually see Madam Web? I feel like it just kind of happened. People made fun of it, and then it just went away. Didn't even get a cool meme like Morbius did.
Everyone that was involved can be salty that it wasn't good, but you knew what you were doing.
Yeah. You were the one.
You read that script?
Yeah, you read that script. You gave those line deliveries. You read that dialogue. That's on. Yeah. But then again, I'm sure some of those people were just happy to be working.
I mean, everyone's happy to be working. Hollywood's still really, struggling right now. But yeah, it's like, look, you could lean into the fact that it's absolutely corny and not that great. That would make it fun, and it would
be
probably
self-aware.
make people want to watch it. Yeah.
Well, hey, at least they're not Sony, who just withdrew a $400 million game while giving full refunds to everyone after 2 weeks. Because, ouch. That's rough.
Yeah.
Unless you really got to force this evolutionary thing. It looks all pretty clear-cut.
Yeah, when you lie about it.
It's not clear-cut.
Dude, you're lying about it to say that it's clear-cut. It's not a good look. I'm going to take a drink. That's
you ever notice
stupid.
that, people like him and the people that are like, oh, the Bible's very clear. Those people, are like almost a circle on the Venn diagram.
Yeah, I've said it before. The perspicuity of the scripture might be the silliest belief in all of Christianity, and it is not, again, a universal in Christianity, but it's pretty widespread in like Protestant Christianity, and it might be the least plausible belief that has ever come out of any segment of Christianity. Perspicuity of Scripture, the idea that Scripture is clear enough that anyone can just read it and come to the right conclusion about what it's teaching you about God.
No.
Um,
It tells me so much without telling me. Like, it tells me immediately, A, you don't know Hebrew, you can't read it, you don't understand the language, you've never tried to learn it, you only know what other people tell you, and your English translation is all you care about.
Yeah. And also, hey, English translations are not free of the theological or ideological bias of the translators. Also, Pillowpunk seems to be indicating that I've missed a membership chat, but I do not see one that I missed. So, I don't know.
I'm sure that Richard Dawkins would love to have this one back, because it was back in
He's
1970.
not the king of science.
Yeah, I'm not even really a fan. He's kind of a weird
He's a dick.
Yeah, dick. Yeah. Who's also doing the whole weird, like, well, I'm actually a cultural Christian because I might not actually believe in God, but I really don't like Islam. Like, okay, thanks.
Okay.
It's weird, but sure, I guess.
So Islamophobia is part of Christian culture? Good job.
I mean, it is in some cases. It doesn't have to be. It isn't always, but it certainly is in some cases. So, you know.
7, but he said, we don't need evidence. We know it to be true, talking about evolution and his intellectual commitment to Darwinism.
First, I very highly doubt that that is actually a quote that isn't taken out of context. But second, I don't give a crap what Dawkins said about anything, really. He's a guy who wrote a few good books and a whole bunch of bad books, and who then turned into a giant dick on Twitter, who likes to pretend that, you know, like, CSA is actually fine sometimes. Like, no, I don't care to defend Dawkins.
We don't need evidence. We
Yeah,
just know
it's
it to be
like,
true.
look,
That's
science doesn't venerate demagogues. That's not how it works. Peer review, it doesn't matter if person A said something. That's not how science works. It's done by consensus, collaboration. That's not how, like, any of that works. But yeah, these, like, Protestant evangelicals, specifically Christians, are like, well, this theologian said this, and you're thinking, like, oh, well, they must have some special connection to the Holy Spirit that they could have this true insight. TM. It's like, no one cares. Science doesn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't give a crap.
Look, I'm happy for you that works for you in your, you know, spiritual journey, but that's not what science is about.
Yeah, it's like, look, stuff can be empirically tested and verified regardless of who says a thing.
Yep.
That's
Which is also why
we like
character assassination of Darwin is always meaningless.
Yep.
Like, Darwin could be the love child of Mega Hitler and Pol Pot cubed, and it wouldn't do a damn thing to tell you whether or not evolution is true or not. Like, that's not how anything works. Vagrant Vagabond of Varian Vistas, who's been a member for 15 months and is at the annual level, says, Dawkins also doesn't understand what a binary is. Oh, and AIG is an aggressively average assortment of aggrieved eggplants. Alright, we'll take a drink. And yeah, you're right. No, Dawkins does not understand what a binary is.
Oh, I would have put aggrieved aubergines.
Ooh, yeah, that would have been better. Renee Reborn for $2 says, Dawkins is the AIG of atheists.
Yeah, God.
Yeah, he might be.
I mean, I don't know. That might be Sam Harris, but yeah, they're neck and neck.
Yeah. Also, I really hate the Dawkins scale. So, like, oh, I'm a Gnostic atheist versus an agnostic atheist
whatever.
versus an agnostic theist versus a Gnostic theist. The only thing it does is serve to confuse everyone. That's it. That's all it does.
Also, like, I don't want to use Christian parameters to define, like, Jewish concepts.
And there's that too, yeah.
People are like, oh, are you a theist or an atheist? Are you agnostic? I'm like, those terms are only applicable in, like, Christian hegemony. Like, that context.
Well, they're also applicable in, like, philosophy of atheism. In, like, the subset of philosophy of religion.
But, like, there's this whole baggage that goes with, are you convinced that a god or gods exist?
No, there definitely is.
There's just all that baggage, and I'm just like, nah, I'm good. I don't.
Well, part of the problem is
I
that
don't choose.
a lot of atheist philosophy was developed as a response to Christian philosophy, and so it takes a lot of its like, for the questions that it asks and the categories with which it's concerned from Christianity, even though it is not itself Christian, obviously being itself atheist. Yeah, there is that, which is also the whole thing. Like sometimes you'll have atheists saying like, why do we even need a word for this, right? Because people don't normally define themselves by what they don't believe in and what they believe isn't true. And the answer is because, well, you're in a minority position against a hegemonic like ideology that disagrees with you on this point. That's why you need to do it.
And like using their definitions to like try to talk about like a completely different system where that doesn't map one to one. I reject that, and it's really frustrating because then you get like the r/atheist like dickbags on the internet who are like, all religion's dumb and it's fake and made up. Like, shut up. Just say Christian. Just say Christianity.
I remember once telling a Protestant that most non-Protestants could not answer the question of whether they're Calvinists or Armenians because those are specifically Protestant categories that don't apply to Christianity broadly.
Oh my god.
And then she was like, okay, but are these Christians Armenian or Calvinists? And I was just like, never. You know what? Forget it. Just forget it. It's fine.
Well,
I'm not going to worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a hard conversation because she was just like, no, it has to be one or the other. And I'm like, no, those are Protestant categories. Other Christians are not going to recognize those or side with either one in particular.
Yeah.
Like that. It's like asking someone from like Ghana, are you a Republican or a Democrat? Like it doesn't make any sense.
They'd be like, what?
Right. Even if they know what those are, that doesn't apply. It's a different country. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
They have their own political parties that do not map onto American political parties.
Like a religious statement to me. And in essence, the evolution is a religious belief because you didn't see how it began.
No, it's
there is no
not.
observational evidence to back it up. And so you just
Hey guys, this is one of my favorite analogies. If I see a car crash in the ditch on an icy road with tire tracks leading through a patch of ice, did I see that car crash? No. Does that mean that me surmising that it probably slipped on some ice on the road and then went off into the ditch is a religious belief? No. No, it does not.
No.
Alex Markle says, what the hell does Armenian mean in that context? So Armenian in this context refers to Arminius, a Protestant theologian who was very big on free will, and also, if I remember correctly, at least somewhat like some of his arguments have been used by open theists for their arguments. And so Calvinist is sort of like the opposite of Calvinism, right? So Armenians basically believe that there's free will and that you can choose to accept or reject the free gift of grace from God, and that God does not compel you to accept or reject it. That's the basis there. I don't want to get into a full, theological discussion about, Tulip and the Armenian responses to, 5-point Calvinism. But you can broadly think about it as the Armenian Protestants are the ones who accept free will, and the Calvinists are the ones who accept full predestination. Centered for $10 with their third super chat, thank you so much, says, evangelicals can't imagine not venerating the people who preach. That's why they so often latch onto Dawkins, Darwin, whomever, as they're the same to other thought processes. Yeah, no, it's a point that we really do talk about a lot on this channel, is that science doesn't operate like Protestant Christianity, right? There's no prophets or great theologians or Westminster confessions or anything like that in science. Science is about empiricism and data and predictions. It doesn't matter who makes them. It just matters that they are verifiable and falsifiable, and not so far falsified. Cool Punk, half dog, half canine for $2 says, the two genders, Calvinist and Armenian. It's both hilarious and I hate it. Max P for $2 says,
Cursed.
yeah, atheism's normal framing hurts secular Jews. I would tend to agree, yeah. That's why you...
And even calling us, secular Jews or religious Jews, even that framing of secular and religious, that was specifically created and meant to apply within a Christian context.
Yeah, and not the way that most atheists use it either.
Yeah.
Like, your average Catholic priest who works like this at a parish, that's a member of the secular clergy. You think that guy has a religion? Yeah, probably. So yeah, it's not a great framing. So yeah, and also, I mean, you get it online. You get like atheists who are like, I want to get rid of all religion, and it's like you do realize that is identical to advocating for genocide of huge swaths
Yeah,
of
I'm
the
like,
population,
if you want to
right?
get rid of all religion, well, goodbye all indigenous native tradition, goodbye those people, goodbye all Jews, goodbye like Druze and Yazidi and Samaritans, goodbye.
Yep.
No, we just meant that the religious acts, like, oh, yeah, you think you can separate them. How
No.
arrogant.
Don Giovanni, Emir of Hakan, who's been a member for 3 months and is at the amniote level, says, how much and what kind of young Earth creationist cope will happen if life is found in places like Europa? I think
Much.
Well, so I think what will actually end up happening is that there will at first be a variety of things. I think a lot of people will deny that it was actually real life from something like Europa, and they'll say it was actually contamination from Earth.
Yep.
That will probably be the first refuge. If that
And
becomes...
then, once they can't draft off that anymore, they'll be like, no, God just created life other places too.
Mhm.
We're just special.
Yep. Or even then, maybe we're not special and just God just created a whole bunch of stuff and the Bible is just God's word to this planet.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, you know what? If we found out that there's aliens out there and that they just happen to be independently practicing like Catholicism or something, I would find that a pretty compelling thing.
Yeah.
You know, if there's like a Klingon Jesus out there and like there's a Klingon version of Catholicism complete with basically the same theology, I will be like, okay, you know what, Catholics? You have me intrigued and I will seriously consider your religion.
That requires a pre-Klingon Catholic Klingon Judaism.
Well, certainly a pre-Klingon Catholic, like, monotheistic religion. I don't know exactly how close it would be to Judaism. For one thing, I imagine that, like, kosher rules would be very different on an alien planet that doesn't even have ruminants.
Right.
There would have to definitely be a different set of animals that are quote-unquote clean.
If
like,
that's a distinction between whatever group of Klingons and the neighbors they need to be separated from, like, culturally and...
like the Bolians? What weirdos.
Right.
Ugh. Don't eat the Bolian food. And also, be careful when you're trying to clean out the Bolian sanitation systems, because that stuff is corrosive.
Ugh.
Yeah. Also, it is canon that there are health advisories about engaging in intimate relations with Bolians for other species. Because apparently most of their bodily fluids are in fact dangerous.
Oh dear.
Yeah, like, maybe don't. Or if you do, make sure you take extra precautions. Because, ouch.
Also, I think it would be interesting if we did uncover life, you know, somewhere like Europa or whatever, because there would be a surge in, like, Mormon converts. Because they're like, oh no, we accounted for this.
Yeah, we had this all the way back in the 19th century. Roshino Fugakwad's Minions Keller for $4.99
Hugwa gods.
said,
Hugwa gods.
if life was found on Europa, Yex would claim meteorites from Noah's flood brought the life. Yes, I like
my
that.
God!
I know Kent would, as he does it for the strata on Mars. Yeah, I forgot about the whole, like, all the craters in the entire solar system are Earth ejecta. Because that's, that's part of hydroplate theory.
Yeah. Or Kent just saying, oh, there was a comet and parts of it broke off and caused all the craters on all the other planets.
I also love that
Like,
he's like, a
all
super
right,
cold
well.
comet hit the Earth and that's what cooled it down, as if cold is like an actual thing that you can transfer to something. Glenn
I'm with
Hovind,
Josh McGeese on this.
well, first, Glenn Hovind, full relation for $200 Argentinian pesos, says a common Seventh-day Adventist belief is that angels are created beings from planets that didn't fall. So basically aliens. I don't remember if this comes from white or not. Yeah, so that was actually one of the more recent things I learned about Seventh-day Adventists, and by that I mean like in the last few years, was that unlike the vast majority of Christians who think that the entire cosmos has fallen in some way, they seem to think that like Earth is like a weird fallen pocket of an otherwise unfallen universe. Which is very unusual among Christians. That is definitely not the traditional Christian idea.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's some wiggling going on there because the New Testament talks about creation broadly being affected, but
Yeah.
hey, whatever. I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm not gonna tell them what to do.
Yeah, in fact, if you look at the Eastern Christian icon of Advent, no, sorry, not Advent, Pentecost, sorry, there's a figure labeled Cosmos at the bottom, and that is supposed to be representing the fact that via the incarnation, creating the ability for matter to become sanctified, that this is somehow the first start of the restoration of all of creation into a unfallen state. And then Seventh-day Adventists took like that 2,000-year history of like, cosmology, and was like, nah, what if aliens who aren't fallen? Josh McGee's for $5 says, would they use the Orange Catholic Bible a la Dune? I hope so. That would be cool. Except for those Zen Sunni. They're not going to use that. They're going to use their own.
Yeah, they're not going to use it.
But Robert Adson, who's been a member for 22 months, thank you very much, is at the annual level, says, remember C.S. Lewis wrote science fiction with intelligent aliens. That he did. With a Mothra and an AIG as a bag of dicks, and then 2 disgusting pelagic tunicates. Gross. I'll take a drink.
Yay, pelagic tunicates.
Yeah,
I have compassion for the tunicates.
Weird. But yeah, C.S. Lewis wrote some very, very Christian-y sci-fi books in which he, like, his protagonist goes to, like, Mars and Venus and whatnot. And the antagonist from the first book essentially just becomes Satan by the second book. Because in the first book, he's just sort of like a weird, like, hyper-capitalist guy who's like, I'm gonna exploit Mars for natural resources. And then by the second book, he's, like, literally Satan. Trying to tempt, like, Venus Eve into a new fall. Like, okay. So, sure. I mean, look, if you like C.S. Lewis's writing, you'll probably like his sci-fi books. So, like, if you like the Chronicles of Narnia, okay. If you're hypersensitive to, like, very overt Christian allegory, then maybe they're not for you. But then again, neither would Narnia have been for you. So, if you like Narnia, you probably like them. If you didn't like Narnia, you probably won't like them. Roshina Fugakuds Minions Keller for $1.99
Fahugwa gods.
Says my
Say it
nipple.
with me. Fahugwa gods.
No, at this point, it's a thing that you keep correcting me every time. Rochna Fahugoods Minions Keller for $1.99 says, my nipples are hurting in solidarity. Oh, thanks.
Oh.
I hope they're not chafing. Like, when you go on a run and you don't put any tape over them, that's the worst. That is the worst.
You have to believe it
How do you...
when you don't see anything that would
Dinosaurs
verify
don't
it.
have
Dr. Chris
nipples?
Stringer said, and this is the Natural History Museum of London, and he said,
It crashed
the fake apes
because of-
separated from humans
I'm
about
gonna
5 million years ago, although there
Blame
is no
Vishanti.
fossil evidence of this period of separation.
No, you need to blame yourself because I'm pretty sure that dinosaurs don't have nipples.
Okay, yeah, but my human suit does.
Okay.
And it's a very advanced human suit with, like, tactile feedback.
Okay.
So,
You know what? We don't judge kinks here.
It's not a kink, it's a costume.
Like I said, no judgment.
It's still not a kink. Costume.
Hey, your kink is not my kink. I'm not judging.
We're not getting into anyone's kinks right now. I'm going to try to bring back the video, though.
To try to say that we came
Let's see. We were at like 47:55. All right, let me share that again. Actually, you know what?
All right.
We'll only get a little bit more, and then we're just going to call it.
Okay. All right, that works.
how it began, and there is no observational evidence to back it up, and so you just have to believe it in
Bro, you showed some of the observational evidence.
Yeah, you literally showed the transition between the basal ape tooth row condition and modern human tooth row condition in the video that you put up on screen. And it wasn't even so clipping as to not be visible to us. So, yeah, that's really dumb. But we are going to start wrapping things up. Vishanti, do you have anything coming up on your channel that you want to tell people about?
I am just chronically behind on things because as soon as I got back from DragonCon, I was sick for like a week, which I don't like. And then I've spent most of my time helping plan and prepare for high holy days as well as like organizing. So
Oh yeah, isn't
that
like,
on top of the fact that like my new Hebrew class started, so I may have overcommitted.
Is it-
But
is it Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah coming up in like a few weeks?
yeah, like literally in a week and a half.
Ooh, that's close.
So yeah, it's a lot, and I'm kind of frustrated because it's always this time of year that reinforces to me that we live in a Christian hegemony, because people wouldn't schedule conventions around, like, they wouldn't schedule it directly on top of Christmas, and yet Los Angeles Comic-Con is scheduled directly on top of Rosh Hashanah, so
I will
thanks a
say
lot.
there have been some conventions that were more than 1 year scheduled directly on Easter that I would have gone to, except I was busy with Easter stuff. So,
I mean, it's like, the banks are closed on Christian holidays, they're not closed on Jewish ones. It's a whole
true.
thing.
yeah. Roshina God's Minion Keller for 199 says Dapper is a skinny variant of a furry. I mean, look, one of the big reasons I have a human suit is so that I can do things like put on a Starfleet uniform that's commercially available. Like I did on the stream on Friday. But alright, so you don't have anything currently on the horizon for your
I
channel?
mean, just because I'm behind doesn't mean it's not coming out. Like, I have
Right.
a couple comic reviews that Joshua Geese recommended, and I'm trying slowly to finish a script on deconstruction. So,
Okay.
It'll get done, just slowly.
Well, let's see. On Tuesday, currently the plan is Jackson with Jackson. I do have to double check with Jackson. Then on Thursday, we're going to be doing part 2, or is it? Yeah, it's part 2 of the Andrew Snelling is Still a Liar series. That one is called Andrew Snelling, a Lying Liar Who Lies. So that's what that's called. It's Andrew Snelling is Still a Liar, part 2. So feel free to hang out for that. I think it'll be a fun time. That'll be at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. That's on Thursday. Then on Friday, over on Top Hats Off, we are doing episode 2 of Star Trek Lexington, featuring the same cast, including other YouTubers like Chesh, Jordan from Reason to Doubt, and FTFE. So if you are a fan of me or any of those people, or if you like some of the people in the chat here, like Czar, Ziralon, and Crusher, those are also, it's great place to hang out. We had a lot of fun last time. It was long though, so like be prepared for a multi-hour stream, like much longer than this one. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I think it'll be a lot of fun this time too. So that'll be on Friday. Then on Saturday, I will be doing another Dapper Reacts. I am thinking right now that I will ask Grayson back on, and we can finish up the video about Robert Carter and the missing human fossils. If he can't make it, I will in fact invite Vishanti back on. Basically, I wanted to give Vishanti some bit of a break here and there, you know. So we're alternating a little bit if we can.
Yeah.
So if Grayson can't make it, though, I will ask Vishanti to come back on, and if she can't make it and Grayson can't make it, I will try to find someone else. And if I can't, I'll just come on here and we'll
Actually,
do more
no, I can't, because I will be doing the Get Out the Vote stuff next Saturday. Yeah.
We got a couple of super chats from Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine. So for $10, Pillowpunk says, one trick is to tell a long story that doesn't go anywhere. Like the time I took the ferry to Shelbyville. I needed a new heel for my shoe, so I decided to go to Morganville. And then for another $10, which is what they called Shelbyville in those days, so I tied an onion to my belt, which was the style at the time. Now, to take the ferry costs a nickel, and in those days, nickels had pictures of bumblebees on them. Give me 5 bees for a quarter, you'd say. Actually, some of that wasn't in the chat. I just decided to continue it. Thank you very much, Bill Funk. I really do appreciate that. Oh, wait. No, a third one said, nickels had bumblebees on them. Give me 5 bees for a quarter, you'd say. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. The point is, I had an onion on my belt, which was the style at the time. It just keeps going. That's amazing. I really do appreciate that. All right. Thank you so much for all your generosity, everybody. I really do appreciate it, especially Pillowpump coming in here with an extra $30 at the end. So I hope to see all of you on Tuesday. And also, if you are interested, we are going to be starting Power Rangers Jungle Fury over on the Discord server with the first 4 episodes. I actually am a pretty big fan of that particular season, so if you like Power Rangers at all, or if you like Jungle Fury in particular, head on over. And if you haven't seen Jungle Fury, this would be a great time to get into it. I think Jungle Fury has one of the best villains. She has a couple of the best villains. It has actual character arcs, and it has for a late Power Ranger season, it also has pretty decent acting. And it starts with a power trio, and by the end, they have like more Rangers than most teams do. So you get to have like a steady stream of new Rangers coming in. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, hang out for Jungle Fury. Other than that, bye everybody. I hope to see all of you on Tuesday. Before you go, I'd like to just take a second to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Venthoven, Filrevara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Ellerhan Teller, Horseflesh, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, Sphincter of Doom, Vollus, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, Strawberry Vein, and Dr. Tapioca Weasel. It's because of my channel members and patrons that I'm able to do this show as I am now with 3 videos a week. Without them, I would be reduced to maybe 1 a week, or maybe even 1 every other week. So, if you like this channel and you'd like to support, there's a link to the Patreon in the description, and a join button below this video. All channel members and patrons get early access to videos, often many months in advance, as well as access to my super secret Discord server that's just for supporters and is a great way to contact me. Thanks for watching.